The battle for the city was about to commence. After a victory on the open field and able to secure the wall around the city itself, the Imperium of Man now had to deal with the Orc army that managed to get through and confront them in the streets. The Blood Ravens had arrived to clear them out, and some of them had aligned themselves along the Imperial Guard for morale purposes. But this street would be hit hard, as the Orcs were right in front of them, and the narrowness of the streets made it to where the Imperium could not get a good perimeter set up. But backup, in the form of whirlwinds and dreadnoughts, were on their way via a detour through some wider areas. The Orcs themselves were pumped up for another slaughter. They had tasted blood and victory before, and were ready for more. This time, they had some Orcs amongst them that were equipped with shields, to assure them to get close and personal with their enemy. Once again, the war boss joined them at the front, and with a loud roar, he gave the order to attack. Some of the Orcs could barely restrain themselves, as they saw the opposing forces so close to their position. Immediately, rockets were shot all over, finding most of their targets in the form of the Imperial Guard that colored the streets red with their blood once more. The Space Marines kept their composure. They were at the front, functioning as a shield for the regular infantry, though many a bullet pierced its way through an Imperial Guard's armor. Having the Orcs this close meant that it was easy for the Space Marines to shoot the incoming greenskins. But with each step closer towards the Imperium's forces, the Orcs became deadlier and deadlier. Despite the Space Marines being able to handle the incoming fire, a few were blown off their feet due to the impact of the rockets. But they were out for just a few seconds before recomposing themselves and joined their brothers in glorious combat once more. By now, some of the Orcs with their shields had made it up to the Imperium's perimeter. They would soon engage in melee combat and prevent them from shooting at the ever-increasing horde that flooded the streets. Combat was chaotic and messy, with the Space Marines at the rear still firing while their battle brothers crushed the skulls of the Orcs with their fists at the front. But many had died in this short fight already. The Imperial Guard suffered terrible losses like they always did. The streets were littered with green Orc bodies shot to pieces. And between the fighting that was still happening, even the lifeless bodies of Space Marines and their scouts could be seen. But then the Blood Ravens and Imperial Guard were ordered to quickly get out of there. Their whirlwind artillery had arrived and was given green light to cover the area in scorching heat. And as the rockets left the whirlwinds, they came down on the Orcs with furious anger. Blinding flashes and deafening explosions signaled the destruction of the Orcs. The Imperial Guard that was still alive and watched from afar were at awe on how easily the Orcs died. Against the Imperium's artillery, the Orcs seemed like mere ants, being blown to bits left and right. The Imperium infantry rejoiced and praised the Emperor as they saw the Orc war boss burn, its metal components melting into its skin, preventing it to move, be cooked slowly to a crisp. Once the dust had settled, a glorious display of victory presented itself in the form of hundreds of dead Orcs. Despite such devastation, there were still Orcs out there that were capable of fighting. These Orcs were still a threat to regular Imperial Guardsmen, but the Imperium sent in their dreadnoughts to do the cleaning. These units housed fallen battle brothers. They were put in these walkers like a metal sarcophagus, so that they could serve the Emperor once more. And they would gladly do so. As the Orks stormed their way, the dreadnoughts greeted them with soul-crushing fire. Cheering could be heard all throughout the city as the light provided by the fire illuminated victory to all others around the perimeter. Now, the final battle for the city and its surrounding battlefield was about to commence. Outside the city walls, a final Ork army of different forces had combined to perform one final assault and infiltrate the city once more. They brought more armor and even some stolen and converted assets from the Imperium as well. But this time the Imperium of Man was sure to finish the fight. Besides the regular infantry, space marines, and armor support, they had also called in the help of an Imperial knight. This war machine was often put on the battlefield in a squad. For this particular battle, one should be enough. The knight was controlled by one pilot, a human belonging to a long-lasting aristocratic family. Its presence would work even as a greater banner of hope and morale than the Baneblades or regular space marines did. They were about to face the Ork horde head-on. The Orks had made several openings in the surrounding barrier through which they could move their regular infantry that already opened fire on the enemies they saw before them. Despite a lot of fireworks going off on both sides, the battle itself was very one-sided, despite looking chaotic to the unwatchful eye. The Imperium of Man did a great job at keeping the Orks at bay. Despite taking severe losses amongst their Imperial Guard and even some of their armor, there was never a feeling or threat of losing. This mostly was because of the towering knight. As long as the aristocratic unit was still on two legs and slaughtering Orks in the name of the Emperor, they were convinced they were winning the battle. The open field did give the Orks the opportunity to quickly spread out like cockroaches, therefore making it more difficult to pick them off all bunched up as they came through the surrounding barrier. Commissars ordered their men to move forward, but a few space marines here and there raised their fists to boost the morale of the Imperial Guard to keep on fighting. On their left flank, the Imperial Guard actually took very few losses due to the presence of good cover. Some of the Orks that were running across the battlefield did not seem to notice that their forces had almost been dealt with entirely. Within the chaos, a few space marines lost their lives as well, though most suffered mere bruises or flesh wounds. The explosions and upsweeping dirt made it very difficult to keep track of what was going on, even now. But as the Imperium infantry dealt with the opposing infantry, the knight dealt with the last of the enemy armor. And thus, the final battle for the city was won, and victory went to the Imperium of Man. The war for the planet was far from over, and the wrecks and bodies of fallen men and Ork would be rooted in its soil as memories of the past and omens of what was to come. Despite the victory, it was a question if the city would be livable again due to the high chance of Ork spores being present now. But this was what the armies of the Imperium of Man did. They spilled blood in the name of the Emperor. They did so for many generations and would continue to do so for many more. A city lost would not diminish victories over the Orks in any shape or form, for in the future, there's only war. And not only on this planet, for the conflict of the Imperium of Man stretched over many different galaxies and in wars with many different enemies, some more human-like than others. And then there were those resembling beasts with many limbs, claws, and rows of razor-sharp teeth. Much more blood would have to be spilled on all sides of this great war, with each faction fighting for what they believed in, for whoever they worshipped, and in whom they trusted. Everyone fought for a different reason, whether it was extermination, complete dominance, the greater good, or simply their inherent right as the first rulers. And in the end, there was always chaos. Hey everyone, and thank you very much for watching this 3-part mini-series that I did with the Warhammer 40K mod for Man of War Assault Squad 2. It got a lot of praise from many of you, and I was very happy with the response. Some of you actually thought that this was part of the Halo vs Star Wars vs Warhammer series, but that is not the case. This is just a standalone mini-series. The reason why I wanted to make this is because the earlier mentioned Arma 3 series had gotten some critique by Warhammer fanboys that thought the mod did not represent the Warhammer universe very well. Personally, I think we should be just happy with having a mod for a tactical modern shooter to begin with, but a few things that people criticized were the size of the Orks, how underpowered Space Marines were, and lack of vehicles available like a Baneblade. Because of that, I wanted to make this series to see if those complaining would respond a bit better, and they indeed did so. The Orks, for example, do not only have more models available here, but they behave more like Orks. In Arma, which is all about tactical shooting, the Orks often go prone, which is not very Ork-like according to many comments, but the AI in Arma is simply programmed to do so. Here, that is not the case, where the Orks all run towards the enemy and shoot at the same time. They even have some melee weapons and animations in here too. There were also more units available on the other sides, like the Imperium of Man finally had the Baneblade that so many people wanted to see, which is currently not yet present in the Arma 3 mod, even though there are videos on YouTube many years ago where you can actually see the Baneblade in there, but I think it's support from the Arma 2 mod. There are also things like Knights and Dreadnoughts that cannot be found in the Arma mod. However, in this particular mod, they do not have Titans, where the Arma 3 mod does have the Warhound Titan. That is why I think both mods have the right to exist, as they both offer different experiences with different units and different gameplay mechanics, like the possibility to experience a cool Warhammer battle in first person with the Arma 3 mod. What I like most about this Man of War Warhammer mod is just the spectacle it offers, with all the lasers, rockets, explosions, and blood and gore that makes it just a feast to watch. Units like the Space Marines are in this mod also way harder to kill than the Arma one, despite some of them dying in this series as well. But then again, if one were to look at the cinematics of Dawn of War and Dawn of War 2, actually quite a lot of Space Marines die, so I believe some people make them out to be a little bit more powerful than they ought to be, as they are not invincible. As you saw by the end of this episode, this mod also offers more factions for us to make cool cinematics with, and I was wondering what you guys wanted to see next. I will use the same format, so it's going to be a mini-series of 3, maybe 4 episodes. Personally, I am leaning towards a Tyranid mini-series, purely because they are not in the Arma mod and would make for a complete, unique series where they actually also work like Tyranids in this game with swarming the enemy faction. As you could see, there are also many other factions though. I do have to say that the Necrons do not have that many units available in this mod, so if I were to make a series of that, the battles might get a bit stale after 2 or 3 repeats. I think Chaos we should keep for a cool climax or finale, as they have some really cool units available there. But let me know what you guys thought of this miniseries and what enemy you want the Imperium of Man to face next. Thank you all so much for the support, and see you guys next time.